Hey, how's your boy Matty D? Happy Wednesday. We're only 2 days away from the weekend. Hopefully you get it off. I'm sending you thoughts and prayers regardless to help get you through it. Let's take a look at the story matter today and how to make it actionable. This one didn't blow up, but I think it will in the weeks and months ahead as we create more content around it. And I think unions and the NDP will really be talking about this a lot. And this is a report commissioned by Broadbent Institute from Abacus data asking what Canadians think about the federal deficit and the post-pandemic recovery. And I'm going to try to get through this fast. So let's go right to the end. This is exciting. We have 7 in 10 Canadians saying they want to work to build an economy and society that is more fair and equitable than it was before the pandemic, with only 30% of people saying they want to work to get the economy and society back to where it was before the pandemic. That is saying we are not going back to normal. We are never going back to the way things used to be. It is clear already from remote work and how people are walking off of the job when it comes to frontline jobs that don't pay, that don't offer benefits, that we're done being abused by the 1%. We've seen very clearly the richest take advantage of our society. We've seen all the profits from the COVID situation go to the 1%, the bailouts, the excess subsidies. It goes to the richest among us. The Canadian billionaire wealth was up by over $78 billion in April. It is over $100 billion by now. And you take a look at where this money's going, where these billions of dollars are going. One family, $14 billion increase. Galen Weston and family of Superstore fame who stole all your bread money, their increase has gone by $4.5 billion. So it's going to individuals, Joseph Tsai, David Sheraton, billions of dollars from our society going to the richest 1%, and Canadians are done with it. We're going to go run through this report really quick, so we're trying to keep it tight, but please check out Broadbent Institute. Please check out Abacus data if you want the fine details. It is such a good report, and it does get into regions, it gets into voting intention, it gets into age groups, so I really recommend checking out the full report if it's interesting to you. But let's just take a look at some like the key data. This one I thought was really interesting. So what might have to happen in order to reduce the deficit? Starts off depressing. This is what people think is going to happen. We live in a government run by liberals, so of course it's depressing. People think it's going to happen is taxes on the lower middle income. Totally happening with liberals, especially if they get a majority. And the next, programs and services will be cut. 67% people think will happen. And you take a look at the global south, you take a look at Europe. Austerity is a disgusting, ugly, terrible thing that damages society and causes irreversible harm to communities. So we need to fight it. We see the collapse of governments, the overthrowing of governments. We see rioting. We see so much I hesitate to say, but the violence in the street to oppose violence enacted on people by the state. And I think it is carries with it so many lessons from the global south and from Europe that we can employ or deploy up here. And I think that we will need to do those things should austerity come about. And we've seen Chrystia Freeland hint at it, and we've seen Trudeau hint at it, and we will need to fight it. We'll make other videos talking about why exactly it's so negative, but it is nice to see that Canadians are aware that this is a thing that is likely to happen. And then we'll jump into what people think is like the negatives, and this carries with it the two things that are most likely to happen are also the things people see as the most negative. So we see 68% of people say there's a harsh effect on our society if we increase taxes on lower and middle income people. We see 57% of people say it's going to be very negative. Programs and services are cut through austerity. So it's nice to see that Canadians have that awareness and that intelligence. And it's tough because we live in such an atomized society with such shitty media coverage. And we really is easy to feel like you're alone or you have a unique perspective on things. But it's nice to see these numbers come out of Canadians and the realization that we are not alone, and we need to talk more to each other about our living conditions, our working conditions, our housing conditions, being very transparent with the problems and the struggles we face, because ultimately the solutions are very simple and most people would seem to agree. The problem is that the solution is always going to be going at the 1%, and that's what scares the people who own the media companies. That's what scares the liberal government, the conservative government, because they share the same climate goals, they share the same economic goals, they share the same advisors and the same lobbyists. The moment we come together and start opposing this shit in solidarity with each other in a unified voice is when the ruling class gets scared. And that's where this next portion comes in and where it is so exciting, because people are asked then what they think is the most important thing to do. And that is by and large, the number one thing, a promise to not cut funding for healthcare, education, or other important social programs, with 91% support, 54% of people saying it's a must-have. That is amazing to see that so many people are opposed to austerity, by 54% saying it's a must-have. We know that we have support if we need to take militant actions to fight austerity, and that hopefully is enough to scare away any politician who would raise it seriously or even hint at it again. Even though Chrystia Freeland may be a Nazi, she still wants to be employed, so we need to make this message heard to as many people as possible. We also have, as the number two option, a wealth tax of 1%. And 1% is nothing. It's the most the NDP can imagine, but it's not an inspiring figure, and it should be higher, but we'll work with what they give us. A wealth tax of 1% paid by the wealthiest Canadians is supported by 88% of Canadians, 9 in 10, with 54% saying it's a must-have as well. And that just shows like the intelligence Canadians have. Like, we look at the 1% and who has taken and profited from our labor so heavily. We know who it is, and we're willing to tax them to get that back and to rebuild our society for the better. That is also something that we should share with as many people as possible. It does have many other things that people suggest that we should do, and again, I recommend checking it out. But it's really exciting when we get to just the final number here. 7 in 10 Canadians say they want to work to build an economy and society that is more fair and equitable than it was before the pandemic. So let's to make this actionable now. I think the easiest thing to do would be to share content about this report. I think that you'll see a lot more videos and memes and infographics come out shortly. So just keep an eye open for that and share it with anybody in your circle. To create content, if you have thought about making a video, thought about starting a Twitter account just to post memes and jokes, do it. We need you. I will be happy to share any of your content and try to get it in the hands of better, cooler people than me. And I think that there's so much that can be done. So propaganda is the most important thing at this juncture right now. But we also want to be mindful of that negative. What happens if austerity becomes a serious consideration for how we finance our recovery from COVID? And then we have to look at where the protests took place historically. And that's been largely through the people who've been most attacked, which is students and the marginalized. So I think we need to kind of do our due diligence and reach out to the student groups. And a lot of the groups right now are most active in climate. So trying to get involved with the climate protests that are be coming in September, those are going to be big and crucial. And it's a good opportunity for us to just have a good time, meet people in our communities, just come out for a lunch break to these. It's pretty simple, and just talk to people. And I think as we build that awareness, and when people see on the news how many people are showing up to these things, the idea of austerity and then invoking the rage of such masses will hopefully scare them off. And then if it doesn't, by already being included in those networks, it will help organize all the faster with all the more dramatic effect. And I think that we really have a good chance of beating this thing with so many Canadians so deeply opposed to austerity and so deeply in favor of taxing the 1% to get the goods back. And I think that's when we talk next, we need to look more at what needs to be done to build that better economy and society that's more fair and equitable. I would personally say we need to work towards socialism truly and fully, and I think we need a revolution, but that's for another video. I'm going to send you love and solidarity for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have yourself a great night. Peace.